Don't purchase silver until you see what just happened in Mexico, because right now, the price on your screen is lying to you. Silver is sitting near $56, stuck, unable to break 60. And if you only look at that number, you'd think this metal was in trouble, but behind that price, something enormous just happened. On July the 1st, Washington made one quiet decision about Mexico, a decision that just placed 20% of the entire world's silver supply under permanent uncertainty. No mine has closed, no shipment has stopped, not yet, but the ground beneath this market has already shifted, and almost no one is talking about it. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what happened, why it matters far more than the price chart suggests, and why the next 12 months could change everything. For anyone holding silver, stay with us. Welcome back to Finance Focus. If you're joining us for the first time, this channel exists for one reason: to help you see past the noise and understand what's really moving the precious metals market before it shows up in the headlines. If that sounds like something you value, do us a favor before we go any further. Take just a moment, find that subscribe button and press it. It costs you nothing, it takes 2 seconds, and it means a great deal to us. It's simply our way of knowing you'd like to keep learning alongside this channel. On the surface, silver looks like a metal in trouble. The price sits near $56 an ounce. It cannot seem to break past 60, and it remains far below the peak of over $121 that traders saw back in January. For anyone glancing at a chart, the conclusion feels obvious. Silver is weak, silver is struggling, silver is not the asset it once was. This is the story most people are being told. Analysts point to a slowdown in the broader economy. They talk about high oil prices keeping the Federal Reserve cautious. They mention an ongoing war weighing on global confidence. They note that real interest rates remain stubborn and that assets like silver, which pay no yield, tend to get sold off when rates stay high. Each of these explanations sounds reasonable. Each one gets repeated across financial media without much question. But there is a problem with this story. It focuses entirely on the price you see on a screen. It says nothing about where silver actually comes from, how it is mined, or what happens when the physical supply of a metal is suddenly placed under threat. A price chart reflects paper trading. It does not reflect what is happening in the ground, in the mines, or in the trade agreements that govern how silver crosses borders. And this is exactly where the real story begins. While traders were focused on interest rates and inflation data, a much quieter event took place, one that received almost no attention outside of trade policy circles, yet carries consequences that could reshape the silver market for years. On July the 1st, the United States made a decision involving Mexico. It was not a headline that dominated the news. It did not cause markets to move sharply that day. But for anyone who understands how silver actually reaches the world, this decision matters far more than any single day of price movement. Mexico is not just another country that happens to produce silver. Mexico is the single largest source of silver on the planet. Roughly 1 out of every 5 ounces mined anywhere in the world comes from Mexican soil. That is not a small detail. That is the foundation of the entire global supply chain for this metal. When something changes, the terms under which Mexico's silver reaches international markets, it does not stay a local issue. It becomes a global one. This is why the price chart can be so misleading right now. The chart shows short-term trading behavior, fear about the Federal Reserve, reaction to economic data, general caution during uncertain times. What it does not show is a slower, deeper shift taking place beneath the surface. A shift in how reliable, how predictable, and how stable the largest silver-producing country in the world is now considered to be. Business professionals and serious investors understand a simple truth. Markets often misprice risk in the short term. A stock, a currency, or a commodity can look calm on the surface while real structural problems build quietly underneath. Then, at some point, the market catches up to reality, often quickly and often without warning. This appears to be exactly the kind of situation now forming in silver. The decision made on July the 1st did not shut down a single mine. It did not stop a single shipment of silver from leaving Mexico. On the surface, nothing visible changed at all. And that is precisely why almost no one noticed it. But underneath that calm surface, the rules governing 1/5 of the world's silver supply were quietly rewritten, and not in a way that favors long-term stability. What exactly happened on that day, why the United States made this choice, and what it now means for the future of Mexican silver production, these are the questions that matter far more than where the price sits this week. Understanding them requires looking past the chart entirely and into the actual mechanics of trade policy, mining economics, and global supply. That is where this story turns next. Because once the details of this decision are laid out clearly, it becomes difficult to look at the current silver price the same way again. When news of the July 1st decision first began circulating, confusion spread faster than clarity. Many assumed the worst version of events. that the trade agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada had simply expired, leaving decades of cooperation hanging in limbo. This assumption was wrong, and understanding why it was wrong is the first step toward understanding what actually took place. The agreement did not expire. It remains fully active and legally binding until July the 1st, 2036. Nothing about the current terms of trade changed overnight. Shipments continued. Tariff schedules stayed in place. On paper, business between the three countries carried on exactly as it had the day before. So what did happen? The United States declined to lock in something else entirely, a 16-year extension that would have renewed the agreement's long-term certainty well into the future. This extension was built into the original treaty as an option, not a requirement. Refusing it did not end the deal. It triggered something written into the fine print of the agreement itself, a fallback mechanism few outside of trade policy circles ever pay attention to. That fallback mechanism now requires the United States, Mexico, and Canada to conduct a formal joint review of trade terms every single year. Instead of one long, predictable horizon stretching more than a decade into the future, the three countries are now bound to a rolling 12-month cycle of renegotiation and reassessment. This distinction may sound like a small technicality. It is not. There's a significant difference between a business knowing its trading terms are fixed for the next 16 years and a business knowing those terms could shift, tighten, or become politically contested every single year without exception. The first environment invites long-term investment and planning. The second invites hesitation, caution, and constant reassessment of risk. Why would the United States choose the second path deliberately? The reasoning given was economic. The trade representative overseeing the decision pointed directly to the size of the American goods deficit with Mexico, which reached nearly $191 billion in 2025. Alongside that figure, officials cited broader concerns about trade imbalances that, in their view, needed to be revisited more frequently rather than locked in for over a decade. From a political standpoint, this reasoning is understandable. Governments regularly seek more frequent opportunities to renegotiate terms they consider unfavorable. But from the standpoint of a commodity market, and silver in particular, the consequences run much deeper than any single policy debate. Some analysts, upon hearing this news, dismissed its importance almost immediately. Their argument was straightforward. Nothing physical has changed. No mine has been ordered to close. No shipment has been blocked. No tariff has been imposed on silver itself. If nothing tangible has happened, they argued, then nothing tangible should be expected to happen. This argument overlooks something that experienced traders and business owners understand instinctively. Uncertainty itself carries a cost, even when nothing visible changes. A business that once had 16 years of predictable rules to plan around now has only 12 months of certainty at any given time. Long-term contracts become harder to justify. Expansion decisions become harder to approve. Capital that might have flowed confidently into Mexican mining operations now pauses to ask a new question every single year. Will this still be a stable place to operate 12 months from now? This is what economists sometimes call an invisible tax, a cost that never appears on an invoice or a balance sheet, yet quietly shapes decisions across an entire industry. It does not announce itself with a headline. It does not require a single new law. It simply changes the calculation happening inside every boardroom that depends on Mexican silver reaching the global market reliably. And this is precisely why the July 1st decision deserves far more attention than it has received. It did not stop silver from flowing out of Mexico today, but it placed a permanent question mark over the country responsible for 1/5 of the world's entire supply. A question mark that resets and must be answered again every single year from now on. What makes this even more significant is that silver was never the primary target of this decision at all. The real friction point involves a different metal entirely, one deeply connected to silver in ways most people never consider. That connection is where this story goes next. Most people who think about silver picture it as its own market, mined on its own, sold on its own, priced entirely on its own terms. This picture is incomplete, and understanding why reveals the second half of what is now threatening supply. Roughly 3 out of every 4 ounces of silver produced worldwide do not come from a mine built to dig for silver at all. They come from mines built to dig for copper, lead, and zinc. Silver rides along as a byproduct, extracted almost as a bonus during the process of pulling other metals out of the ground. Only a small handful of primary silver operations exist where silver itself is the main target. For the rest of the industry, silver's fate is tied to decisions made about entirely different metals. This is why copper deserves attention in a story that is supposedly about silver. If copper mining in Mexico becomes less profitable, less predictable, or less attractive to operate, silver output does not stay untouched. It falls right alongside it, quietly, without any headline announcing a silver shortage directly. And copper is exactly where the next layer of pressure is building. Back in August of 2025, the United States placed a steep 50% tariff on semi-finished copper products. At the time, one detail stood out to those paying close attention. The tariff deliberately excluded raw copper ore, concentrates, and unrefined forms of the metal. This exclusion mattered because raw, unrefined copper is exactly how byproduct silver typically crosses the border alongside it. In effect, a narrow passage remained open, even as the broader door began closing. That passage will not stay open indefinitely. A report from the Department of Commerce has now reached the President's desk, and a decision is pending on whether to extend tariff coverage to refined copper itself, framed as a matter of national security. If approved, the tariff would begin at 15% in January of 2027, then climb steadily toward 30% by 2028. Markets rarely wait for an announcement to become official before reacting. Inventory levels tracked on commodity exchanges have already told part of this story. Copper stockpiles held on the exchange jumped from roughly 8,000 tons to more than 650,000 tons in a remarkably short window of time. This kind of movement does not happen by accident. It happens when experienced traders and physical buyers move metal across borders ahead of a tariff wall they expect to close soon, securing supply while the rules still allow it. For anyone running a business or managing capital, this kind of behavior sends a clear signal. Sophisticated market participants are not waiting to see what happens. They are positioning now based on where they believe policy is heading. That kind of early coordinated movement is rarely wrong about the direction of travel, even when the exact timing remains uncertain. If the refined copper tariff does move forward, the economic logic of operating a copper mine in Mexico changes immediately. Higher costs to bring copper into the United States make certain projects less profitable, and less profitable projects tend to slow down, scale back, or in some cases, stop altogether. When that happens, the byproduct silver that rides alongside that copper production slows down with it, disappearing from supply without ever being the direct target of any policy at all. This is the piece of the story that rarely gets discussed. The conversation around Mexico has focused almost entirely on trade reviews and silver percentages. Very little attention has gone to the fact that a parallel tariff threat aimed at an entirely different metal could squeeze silver supply through a side door that most observers never think to watch. Two separate policy pressures, aimed at two different targets, are now converging on the same underlying result: less certainty and potentially less silver coming out of the one country responsible for a fifth of the world's supply. And this convergence would be far less concerning if the silver market had plenty of room to absorb it. It does not. The next part of this story explains exactly why. Everything described so far would matter far less if the silver market had spare capacity to withstand it. It does not. Silver is currently on track for its sixth consecutive year of consuming more than the world actually produces. Industry researchers place this year's shortfall above 46 million ounces, a gap that keeps repeating year after year, even before accounting for anything happening in Mexico. Demand behind this shortfall is not the kind that simply disappears when prices rise. Global solar installation is expected to grow by around 15% this year alone, and solar manufacturers require physical silver to build their panels, regardless of whether the metal trades at $30 or $100. Some substitution toward copper is happening in parts of the industry. But this shift is gradual, and it is not large enough to offset the scale of demand still relying on silver directly. At the same time, supply has been moving in the wrong direction. Mexican silver production has declined for 3 straight years, including a 5% drop last year alone. Even the country's largest primary silver producer was forced to lower its production guidance for this year by 9%, not because of tariffs or trade policy, but because of geology. Ore veins are narrowing, ground conditions are becoming more difficult. This detail matters, because it shows the supply problem is not only political, it is physical, and it was already underway before the July decision added a second layer of pressure on top of it. This creates a striking irony at the center of the entire story. The only major producer expected to bring meaningful new supply into the market this year is the same country that trade policy has just placed under a rolling 12-month review. 3 conclusions follow from everything laid out across this story. First, a disconnect now exists between the paper price of silver and the physical reality underneath it, as short-term trading reacts to interest rates, while the deeper supply story goes largely unpriced. Second, a jurisdictional premium is beginning to form as capital increasingly favors silver producers operating in politically stable regions, away from countries facing recurring trade uncertainty. Third, the distance between physical silver and paper silver contracts is likely to widen further as fewer ounces become available to meet obligations that exist mostly on paper. If the pending copper tariffs move forward or trade friction escalates further, additional deficit pressure could push this year's shortfall closer to 90 million ounces. That is not a guarantee. It is a possibility built entirely on decisions already in motion. None of this will announce itself with a single dramatic headline. There will be no morning where a news alert declares that silver supply has vanished overnight. Instead, this is a slow, quiet tightening, a gap widening gradually, month after month, until its effects become difficult to ignore. For business professionals and serious investors, the lesson is not urgency for its own sake. It is awareness, recognizing that the price on a screen and the reality beneath it can drift apart for a long time before the market finally reconciles the two. If this breakdown helped make sense of what is really happening in the silver market, consider showing support by rating this video, sharing it with someone who would find it valuable, leaving a comment with your thoughts, and subscribing to stay ahead of the next development.